A millionaire visits an orphanage for the first time and comes across a wheelchair-bound girl isolated in the rain. When he approaches her, she glares at him and says coldly, "Nobody ever chooses me, not even my father." The phrase struck him like a thunderbolt, awakening something he had thought buried forever. Without knowing it, that encounter would begin the most transformative decision of his entire life. If this story interested you, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like this video and tell us which city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The gentle patter of rain against the windows of Marcus Bennett's corner office in downtown Boston created a soothing rhythm that contrasted sharply with his usual fast-paced routine. At 38, he had built Bennett Real Estate into one of the most prestigious firms in Massachusetts. Yet something felt empty in his perfectly curated life. The rain-soaked glass distorted his view of the city skyline, making the familiar landscape seem somehow different, almost dreamlike. His assistant Sarah knocked softly before entering with his afternoon schedule. "Mr. Bennett, the board meeting starts in 20 minutes, and afterward, you have the Charity Foundation's annual donation review." She paused, noting his distant expression. "Should I postpone any of these?" Marcus adjusted his steel-gray tie, a habit he'd developed when deep in thought. "No, but please make sure the donation checks are ready. I think I'd like to deliver some of them personally this time." Sarah's surprised expression wasn't lost on him. In the decade she'd worked for him, Marcus had always handled charitable giving through wire transfers and formal letters. Personal deliveries weren't his style. He was known for his methodical approach to business, his careful planning, and his ability to maintain professional distance in all situations. Later that afternoon, Marcus found himself driving through the outskirts of Boston, his luxury sedan's wipers pushing away the persistent drizzle. The Children's Hope Center wasn't what he expected. The modest building with its weathered brick facade and slightly unkempt garden seemed at odds with its prestigious address in his foundation's documents. As he parked, a group of children rushed past his car, their laughter carrying through the rain as they chased each other around puddles. The scene stirred something in him, a memory perhaps, or a longing he couldn't quite name. The center's director, Diana Williams, met him at the entrance. She was a tall woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes that seemed to look straight through his carefully maintained facade. "Mr. Bennett, what a surprise. We usually just receive a check in the mail." Her tone was warm, but carried a hint of careful assessment. "I thought it was time to see firsthand where our donations are going," Marcus replied, following her through corridors that showed signs of loving care despite their age. Children's artwork decorated the walls, bright splashes of color against faded paint. As Diana led him through a tour, explaining their programs and needs, Marcus found his attention drawn to the courtyard, visible through large windows. Despite the dreary weather, several children played under the covered areas, but one small figure caught his eye. A little girl in a wheelchair stationed under an awning, completely absorbed in drawing. "That's Emma," Diana said softly, noticing his gaze. "She's been with us for 8 months now." Something about the girl's solitude amid the activity around her made Marcus pause. "Would you mind if I—" He gestured toward the courtyard. Diana nodded, that careful assessment still present in her eyes. "Of course." Marcus stepped out into the covered walkway, approaching the small artist with measured steps. Her drawing pad was propped against a makeshift table attached to her wheelchair, and her small hands moved with surprising precision across the paper. "That's an interesting drawing," he said, noting the orange cat she was sketching. It had what appeared to be paper wings attached to its back. Emma didn't look up immediately, adding final touches to her creation. When she did raise her eyes to meet his, Marcus felt an unexpected jolt. They were striking blue, like a clear winter sky, but held a depth of understanding that seemed far beyond her years. "It's Butterscotch," she explained matter-of-factly. "He's a cat who doesn't need legs to get around because he can fly." The simplicity of her explanation, delivered without a trace of self-pity, struck Marcus deeply. He found himself pulling up a nearby chair, something he hadn't planned to do. "That's quite creative. Does he have any adventures?" Emma's expression remained serious as she added more details to her drawing. Lots. He helps other cats who can't walk or run. He shows them they can still do amazing things. She paused, her pencil hovering over the paper. Nobody wants a cat that can't chase mice or climb trees, just like nobody wants a kid who can't walk. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Before he could respond, Emma continued drawing, adding what looked like ramps and wide doorways around her flying cat. Her focus was absolute, as if the conversation was already over. Back in his office the next day, Marcus couldn't focus on the quarterly reports filling his screen. Emma's words kept echoing in his mind, disrupting his usually disciplined thoughts. The morning's conference call became a blur of voices as he found himself sketching small cats with wings in the margins of his notepad. "Mr. Bennett?" Sarah's voice snapped him back to reality. "The development team is waiting in the conference room for your approval on the new luxury condos design." Marcus gathered his papers, straightening his tie as he stood. "Thank you, Sarah. Could you do me a favor? Find out what art supplies are appropriate for a 7-year-old girl who likes to draw." Sarah's eyebrows rose slightly, but she simply nodded and made a note. Over the years, she'd learned that her boss's occasional surprising requests usually had interesting stories behind them. The meeting with the development team dragged on as they presented their latest designs for high-end apartments. Marcus found himself staring at the blueprints with new eyes, noticing things he'd never considered before. "Where are the accessibility features?" he interrupted suddenly, causing the lead architect to stumble mid-sentence. "Sir?" The architect shuffled through his papers nervously. "We have the standard required elements in place, of course." "Show me," Marcus insisted, leaning forward. As the team pointed out the basic accommodations, he felt a growing dissatisfaction. These are minimums. What if we reimagined the entire space, make it truly inclusive without sacrificing luxury? The team exchanged uncertain glances. This wasn't the Marcus Bennett they knew, the man who prioritized maximizing profit per square foot above all else. Yet something in his tone made it clear this wasn't a casual suggestion. That evening, instead of heading home to his penthouse apartment, Marcus found himself driving back to the Children's Hope Center. The rain had finally stopped, leaving behind puddles that reflected the golden light of sunset. He carried a large art supply set, carefully selected based on Sarah's research. Diana met him at the door again, surprise evident in her expression. "2 visits in 2 days, Mr. Bennett. This is unexpected." "Please call me Marcus," he said, shifting the package in his arms. "I thought Emma might like some new art supplies." Diana's expression softened slightly, but her eyes remained watchful. "That's very kind. However, I should warn you, Emma has been through a lot. Her father was a brilliant architect who left her here after her accident. Her mother was a music teacher who didn't survive that day. Emma's learned to be careful with her heart." Marcus absorbed this information, feeling an unexpected tightness in his chest. "I understand. I'd like to give her these if that's okay." They found Emma in the small library, drawing as usual. Her face remained neutral when Marcus presented the art supplies, but her hands trembled slightly as she opened the package. Inside were professional-grade colored pencils, markers, and a leather-bound sketchbook with thick, creamy pages. "The paper won't tear even if you need to erase a lot," Marcus explained, watching as she ran her fingers over the smooth surface. "And look, it has a special clip to hold it steady on your table." For the first time, Emma's serious expression cracked slightly. A small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth as she immediately began testing the new pencils, her strokes confident and sure. Marcus pulled up a chair, maintaining a respectful distance. "Would you tell me about what you're drawing?" he asked softly. Emma worked in silence for a moment before responding. "It's a house where everything works for everyone, see?" She pointed to various features in her drawing. "The doors are extra wide for wheelchairs. There are no steps anywhere. The windows are low so everyone can see out. And there's a special elevator for Butterscotch when his wings get tired." Marcus leaned closer, genuinely intrigued by her design concepts. "You've really thought this through. Have you designed other buildings?" Emma nodded, reaching for her old sketchbook. As she flipped through the pages, Marcus saw dozens of drawings, schools, parks, houses, all reimagined with careful attention to accessibility. Each one showed remarkable insight into the challenges faced by people with different needs. "These are impressive," he said, meaning it. "You know I build buildings for a living, but I think you understand. Something about design that I've been missing all these years." Emma looked up at him sharply, studying his face for any sign of mockery. Finding none, she slowly pulled out a fresh sheet of paper from her new sketchbook. "Would you like to learn how to design buildings the right way?" The following weeks brought subtle but significant changes to Marcus Bennett's life. His usually pristine desk now featured a growing collection of Emma's drawings, each one offering a unique perspective on accessible design. His development team had grown accustomed to their boss arriving at meetings with a child's sketches alongside their professional blueprints. "These ramps you've designed," Emma critiqued during one of his visits, frowning at the plans he'd brought to show her. "They're too steep. Butterscotch would get tired flying up those." Her small fingers traced the lines on the paper, demonstrating a gentler slope. "And you need more resting spots. Sometimes wings get tired, you know." Marcus found himself taking notes, treating her suggestions with the same seriousness he would give to any professional consultant. The truth was, her insights were invaluable. She saw things from a perspective his expensive architects had never considered. Sarah noticed the change in her boss. The man who once scheduled every minute of his day now regularly blocked off afternoons for visits to the Children's Hope Center. His phone calls were shorter, his decisions more thoughtful. Even his design preferences had shifted. Every new project now emphasized accessibility and inclusion, often at the expense of maximizing profit. One rainy afternoon, as Marcus sat with Emma in the center's art room, she surprised him by asking about his own childhood. "Did you always want to build things?" Marcus paused, realizing it had been years since anyone had asked him about his past. "Actually, I wanted to be an artist when I was your age. My father, he had different plans." He picked up one of her colored pencils, tentatively drawing a simple house. He said art wouldn't pay the bills, so I learned to build real houses instead. Emma studied his awkward drawing with her usual serious expression. "You're not very good at drawing," she stated matter-of-factly, making Marcus laugh genuinely for the first time in what felt like years. "But that's okay. You're good at making things real. That's important too." Their conversations began to extend beyond architecture. Emma slowly shared pieces of her story, memories of her mother's piano playing, of Sunday morning pancakes shaped like musical notes. She spoke less about her father, but his absence echoed in the spaces between her words. Diana observed their growing connection with both hope and concern. One afternoon, she called Marcus into her office after Emma had gone to her physical therapy session. "Mr. Bennett, Marcus, I need to understand your intentions here." Marcus sat in the offered chair, his usual confident demeanor slightly shaken. "I'm not sure I understand what you mean." "Emma's starting to depend on your visits," Diana said gently but firmly. "She talks about you, shows everyone the buildings you're designing together. She's opening up in ways we haven't seen before, but..." She leaned forward, her eyes serious. "She's also vulnerable. She's been abandoned before." The word abandoned hit Marcus like a physical blow. "I would never..." he started, then stopped, realizing the weight of what he was about to promise. Diana nodded slowly. "I believe you mean that, but I need you to understand something. When her father left her here, he also made promises. He said he just needed time, that he'd come back when he figured things out." Emma waited by the window every afternoon for months. Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Does she still hope he'll come back?" Diana finished softly. "She doesn't. Say it. But sometimes I find her looking out that same window, especially on rainy days like when he left. Children are resilient, but they don't forget. They just learn to protect themselves." The conversation stayed with Marcus long after he left the center that day. Driving through the city streets, he found himself pulling into the parking lot of his latest development project. The luxury apartment complex was nearly complete, but now looking at it through Emma's eyes, he saw all its shortcomings. He pulled out his phone and dialed his project manager. "Tom, I need you to halt construction. Yes, immediately. We're going to make some changes. He paused, looking at Emma's latest drawing tucked into his portfolio. No, I don't care about the cost. We're going to do this right. That evening, instead of heading home, Marcus found himself sitting in his office, surrounded by building plans and legal documents. He opened his laptop and began researching something he'd been thinking about for weeks: the requirements for becoming a foster parent. The process of becoming a foster parent proved more complex than any real estate deal Marcus had ever navigated. Each visit to the social services office brought new forms, new questions, and new anxieties. His perfectly organized life began to show cracks as he rearranged priorities and reimagined his future. Sarah helped him research specialists, accessibility modifications, and schools with strong support programs. She said nothing about the children's furniture catalogs she found on his desk, or the way he now spent his lunch breaks watching videos about adaptive technology and physical therapy techniques. "Mr. Bennett," she said one morning, placing a stack of papers on his desk. "The contractor called about your penthouse renovations. They need final approval on the modifications." Marcus reviewed the plans: widened doorways, smooth flooring transitions, adjusted counter heights, and a state-of-the-art elevator installation. "Schedule a final walkthrough for next week. Everything needs to be perfect." As he immersed himself in preparation, Marcus also began looking for someone who could help with Emma's daily care. The search for the right person proved challenging. He needed someone who understood both physical therapy and emotional healing, someone who could provide professional care while offering genuine warmth. The Children's Hope Center had started to feel like a second home. Marcus found himself learning the other children's names, listening to their stories, and understanding why Emma's drawings always included spaces for everyone. The center's worn walls and dated facilities began to bother him more each day. During one visit, he arrived to find Emma in the music room, sitting by an old upright piano. Her fingers hovered over the keys, not playing, just feeling their smooth surface. "My mom used to teach music," she said without turning around. "She said every song tells a story, even without words." Marcus sat beside her on the piano bench, maintaining a respectful distance. "Do you remember any of her songs?" Emma's hands remained still on the keys. "Sometimes in my dreams, but when I wake up they fade away." She looked up at him with those searching eyes. "Why do you keep coming back here?" The question caught Marcus off guard. In the corporate world, he always had ready answers, practiced responses. But with Emma, he found himself speaking from a place of unexpected truth. "Because when I'm here, things make sense in a way they never did before." Later that afternoon, Diana introduced him to Grace Chen, a potential care provider she'd heard about through her professional network. "She has an impressive background in pediatric therapy," Diana explained, "and she comes highly recommended." Grace was younger than Marcus expected, with gentle eyes and an air of quiet competence. As they discussed qualifications and experience, he noticed how she naturally positioned herself at Emma's eye level, speaking directly to her rather than about her. "I understand you're an artist," Grace said to Emma, genuinely interested in the drawing pad on her lap. "Would you show me some of your work?" Emma studied Grace carefully before slowly turning her sketchbook around. "This is Butterscotch," she explained, pointing to her signature flying cat. "He helps other cats find their wings." Grace's response was perfect. No exaggerated enthusiasm, just genuine appreciation and thoughtful questions about Emma's design choices. As they talked, Marcus noticed something he hadn't seen before. Emma's shoulders relaxed slightly, her usual guard lowering just a fraction. During Grace's trial period, Marcus observed subtle but significant changes. Emma's physical therapy sessions, once approached with stoic determination, began to include moments of laughter. Grace had a way of turning exercises into games, of making challenges feel like adventures. But it was more than professional skill. There was something about Grace that seemed to resonate with Emma on a deeper level. Sometimes Marcus would catch Grace looking at Emma with an expression he couldn't quite read, a mixture of recognition and something that looked almost like memory. One afternoon, as Emma worked with Grace on her exercises, Marcus overheard Them singing together, a simple melody he didn't recognize. Emma's voice was hesitant at first but grew stronger as Grace harmonized with her. The song seemed to unlock something in both of them, though neither could explain exactly what. The autumn breeze carried fallen leaves across the Children's Hope Center's courtyard as Grace helped Emma with her morning exercises. Their sessions had developed a comfortable rhythm over the past weeks, punctuated by quiet conversations and occasional bursts of shared laughter. But today, something was different. Emma had been humming a melody, one that seemed to emerge from somewhere, deep in her memory. Grace froze mid-movement, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted Emma's wheelchair. "That song," Grace whispered, her voice unsteady. "Where did you learn it?" Emma's fingers traced invisible piano keys on her armrest. "I don't really remember. It just came to me, like it was always there, waiting." Grace stepped back, steadying herself against the wall. The melody awakened something in her mind, fragments of images, sounds, and feelings that she couldn't quite grasp. Since her accident years ago, her past had remained a blur of disconnected shadows, her identity rebuilt from medical records and social workers' notes. Marcus, arriving for his daily visit, noticed immediately that something was wrong. He found Grace in the staff room, her usually composed demeanor shaken. "Are you all right?" he asked, closing the door quietly behind him. "I don't know," Grace admitted, her hands wrapped tightly around a cup of untouched tea. "That song Emma was humming. I knew it, not just recognized it, I knew it in my bones." She looked up at Marcus, her eyes filled with confusion. "But that's impossible. My memories only go back 5 years to when I woke up in the hospital." Marcus sat down across from her, his business instincts giving way to genuine concern. "What do you remember about your accident?" "Very little," Grace replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "The doctors said the trauma affected my memory. I had no identification when I was found. No one came looking for me. The hospital staff helped me choose a new name, and I built a new life." She managed a small smile. "I focused on helping others because it felt familiar, like something I used to do." Before Marcus could respond, Diana appeared in the doorway. "Marcus, could you come to my office? There's something you need to see." Her expression was unreadable, but there was an urgency in her voice that made him follow immediately. In her office, Diana handed him a letter. "This arrived this morning. Emma's father has been located." She paused, watching Marcus's reaction carefully. "He's signing away his parental rights. Says he wants to clear the way for someone who can be a better parent than he was." Marcus felt his heart race as he read the document. This was what he'd been hoping for, the legal path clearing for his adoption plans. But something else caught his eye, a detail about Emma's mother, listed in the background information. "Her mother was a music teacher," he said slowly, pieces starting to fall into place. "And the accident happened 5 years ago." Diana nodded, already following his train of thought. "I've been going through old records since this morning. The timing matches, the circumstances. Marcus, I think we need to run some tests." The next few days passed in a blur of quiet investigation and careful observation. Marcus watched as Emma and Grace continued their sessions together, noting how they unconsciously mirrored each other's gestures, how they were drawn to the same melodies. The professional distance Grace usually maintained was slipping, replaced by something more instinctive. During one afternoon session, Emma was showing Grace her latest drawing, a detailed sketch of a music room filled with instruments. "The piano has special pedals," she explained, pointing to her adaptations, "so everyone can play no matter what." Grace traced the drawing with trembling fingers. "My hands remember playing," she whispered, more to herself than to Emma. "They remember, even if my mind doesn't." Marcus stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold. He'd hired private investigators, consulted medical records, and pieced together a story that seemed almost too extraordinary to be true. But the evidence was mounting, and with it came a new set of challenges he hadn't anticipated. That evening, after Emma had gone to her room, Marcus found Grace in the center's small garden. She sat on a bench, staring at her hands as if they might hold answers to questions she hadn't even formed yet. "Grace," he said softly, sitting beside her, "there's something we need to discuss. It's about Emma's mother." Grace listened in stunned silence as Marcus carefully laid out the evidence he'd gathered. Medical records, timeline correlations, and most convincingly, old photographs recovered from archived news articles about the accident. The woman in the pictures, a music teacher at a local elementary school, had her same smile, her same way of tilting her head when deep in thought. "The doctors said you were found miles from the actual accident site," Marcus explained gently. "That's why no one made the connection at the time. The trauma caused your amnesia, and without any identification..." Grace's hands trembled as she looked at the photographs. "All these years, I've had dreams about playing piano for someone small. I thought they were just wishes, something my mind created to fill the empty spaces." She looked up at Marcus, her eyes wide with realization. "The song Emma was humming, it was a lullaby. I used to play it for her every night." Marcus nodded slowly. "Diana's arranged for DNA testing if you want to be certain. But Grace, there's something else you need to know. Emma's father has signed away his parental rights. I've been working with social services. I want to adopt Emma." The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken questions. Grace stood up, pacing the small garden path. "What happens now? If I am her mother? Marcus, I don't want to disrupt her life again. She's been through so much already." "That's not what this is about," Marcus assured her. "You've built a connection with Emma these past weeks, one that goes beyond professional care. I've seen how she responds to you, how you understand her needs almost instinctively." Grace stopped pacing, her face a complex mixture of emotions. "But I'm not the same person I was before. That mother she lost, I don't have her memories, her experiences." "No," Marcus agreed, "but you have something just as valuable. You have the heart that recognized her music, hands that remembered how to comfort her, and an instinct that drew you to helping children like her. You're not the same person, but you're still her mother." As they talked through the evening, a new possibility began to take shape. Marcus shared his plans for adapting his penthouse, his research into schools and therapy programs. Grace spoke about her fears, her hopes, and the strange feeling of finding a family she didn't know she'd lost. "I'm not trying to replace anyone," Marcus said carefully. "Emma needs both of us, in different ways. You're her connection to the past, even if neither of you remembers it clearly. I want to help build her future." The next morning, they met with Diana to discuss how to proceed. The challenge ahead was delicate: how to help Emma understand that her mother hadn't abandoned her, but had been lost in her own way. How to bridge the gap between past and present without causing more trauma. "We need to let Emma set the pace," Diana advised. "She's already forming bonds with both of you naturally. Sometimes children understand things in their hearts before their minds can make sense of them." As if to prove Diana's point, they found Emma in the music room, working on a new drawing. It showed three figures: a man in a business suit, a woman by a piano, and a small girl in a wheelchair between them. Butterscotch, her winged cat, watched over them from above. "It's my new family design," Emma explained without looking up. "See? Everyone fits together, even if they're different." She continued coloring, adding details with careful precision. "The house has music and ramps and lots of windows, and nobody leaves anyone behind." Marcus and Grace exchanged glances, both recognizing the wisdom in Emma's simple statement. Sometimes the heart finds its way home before the mind understands the journey. The challenge now would be helping Emma understand that she hadn't lost her mother. She'd just found her in a new way. The DNA test results arrived on a sunny Tuesday morning, confirming what their hearts had already begun to understand. Grace sat in Diana's office, holding the envelope with trembling hands, while Marcus stood nearby, his usual composed demeanor softened by concern. "What matters now," Diana reminded them gently, "is how we help Emma process this. She's already forming natural bonds with both of you. We need to nurture that without overwhelming her." The challenge ahead was delicate: Emma had spent months building walls around her heart, protecting herself from further loss. Now they needed to help her understand that sometimes life could give back what it had taken away, even if in a different form. That afternoon, Grace found herself sitting at the center's old piano, her fingers hovering over the keys. The melody that had triggered her memories weeks ago emerged naturally, filling the room with gentle notes. She didn't notice Emma wheeling herself into the doorway, drawn by the familiar tune. "That's my mum's song," Emma said quietly, causing Grace to stop playing abruptly. "But you play it exactly the same way." Grace turned slowly, her heart pounding. "Emma, would you like to sit with me? Maybe we could play together?" Emma hesitated for a moment before nodding. Grace helped her position her wheelchair next to the piano bench, showing her how to place her hands on the keys. As they began to play together, something shifted in the air between them, a recognition that went beyond words or conscious memory. "My hands remember this," Emma whispered, her fingers finding the notes almost instinctively. "Mom used to guide them just like you're doing now." Marcus, watching from the hallway, saw the moment Grace's professional calm cracked slightly. She blinked back tears as she continued guiding Emma's hands across the keys, their movements perfectly synchronized. Later that day, Emma was working on a new drawing in the art room when Marcus joined her. The picture showed the music room, but with subtle changes, the old piano was now surrounded by soft cushions and adaptive equipment, making it accessible to everyone. "That's a wonderful design," Marcus commented, noting how she'd incorporated ramps and modified seating. "You always think about making things work for everyone." Emma added final touches to her drawing before looking up at him. "Grace helped me figure out how to reach the pedals better today. She knew exactly what I needed, just like..." She paused, her brow furrowing in thought. "Just like Mom used to know." Marcus took a deep breath, sharing a glance with Grace, who had quietly entered the room. They had discussed this moment with Diana, prepared for it, but now that it was here, words seemed inadequate. "Emma," Grace said softly, moving to sit near them, "sometimes life gives us second chances in unexpected ways. Sometimes people we lose find their way back to us, even if they're a little different than before." Emma's hands stilled on her drawing. "Like butterscotch in my stories. He lost his legs but got wings instead." "Something like that," Marcus agreed, amazed once again by Emma's intuitive understanding. "Sometimes people get lost and forget things, but their hearts remember what's most important." Grace reached out slowly, placing her hand near Emma's on the table, not demanding contact, just offering presence. "The song we played today, I didn't learn it somewhere. I remembered it from long ago, from playing it with a very special little girl who loved music as much as I did." Emma's eyes widened as she looked between Grace and Marcus, her quick mind putting pieces together in her own way. "That's why your hands feel like Mom's when you help me. That's why you know all her songs. The doctors say I may never remember everything from before," Grace explained gently. "But my heart never forgot you, Emma. It just took me a while to find my way back." Emma was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation in her own way. Finally, she picked up her colored pencils and began adding to her drawing. Between the piano and the ramps, she sketched 3 figures, the same ones from her previous family design, but now they were all seated at the piano together. "You're different now," she said matter-of-factly, continuing to draw. "Like how I'm different after my accident. But different doesn't mean wrong, it just means we have to find new ways to fit together." Marcus watched as Grace carefully moved closer to Emma, their shoulders nearly touching as they looked at the drawing. Together, the moment was fragile, filled with possibility and healing, but also with the understanding that recovery would take time, patience, and love. The following weeks brought a gentle transformation to all their lives. Marcus's penthouse renovation was finally complete, featuring every thoughtful adaptation Emma had suggested in her drawings. Wide doorways, smooth transitions between rooms, and windows positioned at varying heights made the space welcoming to everyone. Grace had moved into the guest suite, which Marcus had converted into a private apartment. The arrangement allowed her to be close to Emma, while maintaining her independence. More importantly, it gave Emma time to adjust to their new family dynamic at her own pace. The penthouse's most significant addition was a music room, designed with Emma's accessibility needs in mind. A brand new piano, specially modified with adaptive pedals, took center stage. The room's walls were lined with Emma's framed drawings, each one telling part of their story. One evening, as autumn winds whistled outside the panoramic windows, Emma was showing Grace her latest creation. "See? Butterscotch has a whole family now. They're all different, but they fly together." Grace studied the drawing, noting how the winged cats in Emma's artwork had evolved. Now they came in all shapes and sizes, some with wheels instead of back paws, others with sophisticated harnesses and support systems. "They're beautiful, Emma, just like our family." Marcus, entering with hot chocolate for everyone, caught the end of their conversation. "Speaking of family," he said, setting down the mugs, "I have something to show you both." He unrolled a set of blueprints across the coffee table. Emma's eyes lit up immediately. She had grown to love reviewing plans with him. But these were different from his usual projects. "This," Marcus explained, pointing to the detailed drawings, "is going to be the new Children's Hope Center. We're rebuilding it from the ground up, incorporating every design suggestion you've made, Emma." The plans showed a modern, welcoming facility with spacious rooms, state-of-the-art accessibility features, and plenty of natural light. The music room was 3 times the size of the current one, with recording equipment and practice spaces. Art studios featured adjustable workstations that could accommodate various needs. "And look at this," he continued, flipping to another page. "A special wing dedicated to adaptive technology and therapy, where Grace can help other children the way she helps you." Grace touched the blueprints gently, her eyes misting. "You're turning it into everything we dreamed it could be." "Actually," Marcus smiled, "I'm turning it into everything Emma showed us it should be. Every one of her drawings taught us something about making spaces that work for everyone." Emma wheeled closer to examine the details, her expression serious as she traced the lines with her finger. "The ramps are perfect," she declared after careful consideration. "Butterscotch would approve." The moment was interrupted by a soft meowing from the hallway. A large orange cat with a slight limp padded into the room, making his way directly to Emma's wheelchair. They had adopted him from a local shelter 2 weeks ago, and Emma had immediately named him Butterscotch. "See?" Emma giggled as the cat settled in her lap, purring loudly. "He knows we're talking about him. He always knows when we're planning something good." Marcus watched as Grace helped Emma adjust her wheelchair closer to the blueprints, their movements in perfect sync. The scene before him was nothing like the life he had imagined for himself a few months ago. It was infinitely better. The new penthouse, once a showcase of luxury and success, had transformed into something far more valuable, a home where love and understanding flowed as freely as the music from Emma's piano. Where differences were celebrated, not hidden. Where healing happened in small moments of shared joy and quiet understanding. As evening settled over the city, their small family gathered around the piano. Emma and Grace played together, their hands dancing across the keys in perfect harmony, while Marcus listened, his heart full. Through the window, city lights twinkled like stars, and somewhere in the distance, a new building was rising, one that would help other families find their own way to healing and wholeness. The construction of the new Children's Hope Center progressed rapidly, transforming the neighborhood with its innovative design. Marcus had assembled a team of architects who embraced Emma's vision, turning her creative ideas into architectural reality. Each week brought new progress, and Emma's excitement grew as she watched her drawings come to life. One crisp morning, Marcus arranged a special site visit. Emma, bundled up against the autumn chill, led the way along the newly poured accessible pathways. With Grace and Marcus following close behind, the construction team had created a safe route through the building site, allowing Emma to explore what would soon become her legacy. "Look," Emma pointed excitedly to the music wing taking shape. "The windows are exactly like in my drawings." The large floor-to-ceiling windows would allow natural light to flood the practice rooms, while special acoustic panels ensured perfect sound quality. Grace squeezed Emma's shoulder gently. "And see those practice rooms? They're all designed so anyone can teach or learn music, no matter their abilities." Her voice carried a hint of emotion. These rooms would soon allow her to share her rediscovered passion for music with other children facing similar challenges. As they toured the site, Marcus noticed how the construction workers smiled and waved at Emma. She had become a regular presence during their weekly inspections, and her enthusiasm was contagious. Many of them had taken to calling her Little Architect, and they proudly showed her how they were implementing her ideas. "Miss Emma," called out Joe, the site foreman, "want to see something special?" He led them to what would become the Art Therapy Wing. "We just installed the adjustable workstations you designed. Want to test one out?" Emma's eyes lit up as Joe demonstrated how the tables could be raised, lowered, and angled to accommodate different needs. She immediately pulled out her sketchbook, she never went anywhere without it, and began drawing at the perfectly positioned surface. "It's perfect," she declared after a thorough test. "Now everyone can create art comfortably." Later that afternoon, back at home, Emma was unusually quiet as she worked on a new drawing. Grace and Marcus exchanged concerned glances, recognizing the thoughtful expression that usually preceded a significant revelation. "What's on your mind, sweetheart?" Grace asked, sitting beside Emma's workstation in their home art corner. Emma continued drawing for a moment before looking up. "I was thinking about all the other kids like me, the ones who need special places to learn and play." She turned her sketchbook around, revealing a series of drawings showing different buildings, each adapted for various needs. "These could be everywhere," she explained, pointing to her designs. "Not just one center, but lots of them, so every kid has a place where they fit in." Marcus moved closer, studying the drawings with growing interest. He recognized the architectural potential in Emma's vision, not just for charitable projects, but for a fundamental shift in how buildings could be designed to serve everyone. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "Bennett Real Estate could make this our new standard. Every project could incorporate these principles." He looked at Grace, who nodded encouragingly. "We could call it the Butterscotch Initiative, designing spaces where everyone can spread their wings." Emma's face lit up at the suggestion. "Really? You'd build all new buildings like this?" "Why not?" Marcus smiled. "You've already proven it works. The new center is just the beginning." Grace watched the exchange with pride, noting how Emma's confidence had grown. The shy, withdrawn child she'd first met was blossoming into a passionate advocate for inclusive design. It was a transformation that mirrored her own journey from lost soul to recovered mother. That evening, as Emma practiced piano with Grace, Marcus sat in his home office, making calls and sending emails. The Butterscotch Initiative was taking shape, a comprehensive plan to revolutionize accessible architecture across all their future projects. Sarah, his assistant, had embraced the new direction with enthusiasm. "Mr. Bennett," she reported, during their evening check-in, "the response from our investors has been overwhelming. They love the concept of universal design becoming our signature approach." As Marcus ended the call, he heard laughter from the music room. Emma was teaching Butterscotch the cat to play piano, with Grace providing accompaniment. The orange, Tabby strutted across the keys, creating a chaotic melody that had them all giggling. Looking at them, Marcus realized that his company's transformation reflected his own. Like the buildings they were creating, his life had been redesigned around inclusion, accessibility, and love. Every modification, every adaptation had made it richer and more beautiful. The autumn days grew shorter, but the warmth within their home only increased. Grace and Marcus found themselves spending more time together after Emma's bedtime, discussing plans for both the center and their evolving family dynamic. Their conversations, once focused purely on Emma's care, had begun to take on a different tone. One evening, as they sat in the living room reviewing the day's events, Grace noticed Marcus watching her with an expression she hadn't seen before. "What is it?" she asked, setting down her tea. Marcus smiled softly. "I was just thinking about how much has changed, how complete everything feels now." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I never expected to find a family this way." Grace understood the unspoken meaning in his words. She'd noticed the subtle shifts in their relationship too, the lingering glances, the comfortable silences, the way they'd grown to anticipate each other's thoughts and needs. It was different from any connection she'd formed since her accident, deeper and more meaningful. "Emma asked me something interesting today," Grace said, turning slightly to face him. "She wanted to know if you and I were falling in love like in her storybooks. She said it would make sense because then our family would be officially complete." Marcus's heart skipped a beat. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that love between grown-ups is complicated," Grace replied, a small smile playing at her lips. "But then she said something that made me think. She said, 'Sometimes the best things are complicated. Like my drawings, they look complicated, but they make everything work better.'" Their laughter at Emma's wisdom was interrupted by a small sound from the hallway. They turned to find Emma in her wheelchair, Butterscotch perched on her lap, both watching with innocent curiosity. "I couldn't sleep," Emma explained, wheeling closer. "I was thinking about the new center, and then I had an idea for another drawing." She held up her sketchbook, revealing a new design. "See, it's our family treehouse. It has elevators and ramps and music rooms, and look, there's space for everyone to grow together." Marcus and Grace moved to either side of Emma's wheelchair, examining the drawing. The detailed sketch showed a fantastic structure that somehow incorporated everything their family loved: accessibility, music, art, and most importantly, togetherness. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Grace said softly, noting how Emma had drawn all of them together in various scenes throughout the treehouse. "How you've thought of everything. That's because we all fit together now," Emma explained matter-of-factly, like puzzle pieces that looked different at first but were always meant to connect. She looked between them with knowing eyes. "Even if it's complicated sometimes." Marcus caught Grace's eye over Emma's head, sharing a moment of understanding. Emma's innocent wisdom had cut straight to the heart of what they'd both been feeling, but hadn't fully acknowledged. "You know what?" Marcus said, gently taking the sketchbook. "I think this treehouse design deserves a special place. Maybe we could adapt it for a section of the new center's playground?" Emma's eyes lit up. "Really? Could we make it so all the kids could use it?" "Of course," Grace added, her hand finding Marcus's behind Emma's wheelchair. "That's what we do now. We make sure everyone has a place where they belong." As they sat together, discussing Emma's design and sharing quiet laughter, the evening took on a magical quality. Butterscotch purred contentedly, the city lights twinkled beyond the windows, and their hearts beat in perfect harmony. Later, after Emma had finally fallen asleep, Marcus and Grace stood together on the balcony, their hands still linked. The city spread out before them like a canvas of possibilities, each light representing a life that could be touched by their vision of inclusive design and unconditional love. "Emma was right," Grace said softly, leaning slightly against Marcus's shoulder. "Sometimes the best things are complicated." Marcus squeezed her hand gently. "And sometimes," he replied, "they're simpler than we think. They just need the right design to work perfectly." The new Children's Hope Center was nearing completion, as winter wrapped the city in a gentle blanket of snow. Emma's excitement grew with each passing day, her sketchbook filling with new ideas for the finishing touches. The construction team had taken to sending her daily photos of their progress, each one bringing her vision closer to reality. One particularly cold morning, Marcus received an unexpected call from his board of directors. The Butterscotch initiative had caught the attention of major media outlets, and investors were clamoring to be part of what they called the future of inclusive architecture. What had started as a single project inspired by a little girl's drawings was becoming a movement. "Emma," Marcus called out, finding her and Grace in the music room, "how would you feel about sharing your designs with other architects? There are people who want to learn from your ideas." Emma looked up from the piano, where Grace had been teaching her a new piece. "You mean other buildings could be like our center?" "Even better," Marcus smiled, sitting beside them at the piano. "Other cities want to build their own centers. Your designs could help children everywhere." Grace watched as Emma processed this information, noting the subtle shift in her daughter's expression from surprise to determination. "What do you think, sweetheart? Ready to teach the world about inclusive design?" Emma wheeled herself to her drawing table, pulling out her favorite sketchbook. "I'll need to make some special drawings," she declared, "to show them how to do it right." Over the next few weeks, their home became a hub of creative energy. Emma worked tirelessly on a series of detailed designs, each one accompanied by careful notes explaining why certain features were important. Grace helped her organize her thoughts, while Marcus arranged for professional architects to translate her concepts into technical specifications. The media attention grew, but Marcus and Grace carefully shielded Emma from any overwhelming publicity. Instead, they focused on documenting her design process, creating a comprehensive guide that could be shared with architects and builders worldwide. One evening, as snow fell softly outside, Emma presented her completed portfolio to her parents. "I called it Wings for Everyone," she explained, showing them the beautifully illustrated cover featuring Butterscotch leading a group of diverse cats in flight. Inside, each page told a story of inclusion through design. There were schools with music rooms like the one where Grace now taught, playgrounds that welcomed children of all abilities, and community spaces that brought people together regardless of their differences. "Look at this section," Emma pointed. Proudly. "It shows how to make sure friends in wheelchairs can sit with their friends who aren't. No more sitting alone at the end of tables or in the back of rooms." Grace hugged Emma gently, her eyes meeting Marcus's over their daughter's head. They shared a moment of profound pride, recognizing how far they'd all come from that rainy day when Marcus first visited the old center. The portfolio's final page held a surprise, a new drawing of their family treehouse design, but now expanded into something grander. "It's not just for us anymore," Emma explained. "It's a template for community centers where families like ours can find each other." Marcus studied the design, amazed by its sophistication. Emma had incorporated everything they'd learned about accessible architecture while maintaining the warmth and whimsy that made her work special. "This isn't just beautiful," he said softly. "This is revolutionary." That night, after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus found Grace in their home office, reviewing the portfolio again. "She's changing the world," Grace said quietly, running her fingers over Emma's careful drawings. "One building at a time." "She's helping us all see things differently," Marcus agreed, sitting beside her, "just like she helped us see each other." He took Grace's hand, their fingers intertwining naturally. "Remember when we thought our lives were complicated?" Grace laughed softly. "Now it seems like the simplest thing in the world, loving each other, raising our daughter, building something meaningful together." From Emma's room came the soft sound of purring, Butterscotch faithfully keeping watch over his young friend. The cat had become a symbol of their family's journey, proving that sometimes the things that make us different are the very things that help us soar. Outside, the snow continued to fall, each flake unique, yet part of a greater whole. Inside, warmth and love filled every corner of their home, proving that the most beautiful designs are the ones that make room for everyone's dreams to take flight. Spring arrived with a burst of renewal, bringing with it the final stages of the new Children's Hope Center's construction. The building stood as a testament to Emma's vision, a gleaming beacon of inclusive design that would soon welcome children from all walks of life. Marcus had arranged for a private tour before the official opening, wanting Emma to be the first to experience the completed space. As their car approached the center, Emma pressed her face against the window, taking in every detail of the building she had helped create. "It's exactly like my drawings," she whispered in awe as they entered through the automatically opening doors. The entrance hall soared above them, filled with natural light from carefully placed windows. Gentle ramps curved elegantly between levels, making every area accessible to everyone. Grace wheeled Emma through the music wing, where brand new instruments waited in specially designed practice rooms. The piano in the main performance space had been built to Emma's specifications, with modifications that would allow children of all abilities to play. "Try it," Grace encouraged, helping Emma position herself at the keys. Together they played the lullaby that had first triggered Grace's memories, but now the melody carried hope instead of loss. The perfect acoustics carried the music throughout the building, christening the space with joy. In the art therapy wing, they found Emma's original drawings framed alongside architectural renderings, showing how her creative vision had transformed into reality. The adjustable workstations she had tested months ago were now permanently installed, ready to welcome young artists of all abilities. "Look what we added," Marcus said, leading them to a special corner. There, mounted on the wall, was a bronze plaque reading, "The Butterscotch Initiative, where everyone can spread their wings," with Emma's original drawing of the flying cat etched beneath the words. Emma reached out to touch the plaque, her fingers tracing the familiar image. "Now everyone will know that different isn't wrong," she said softly. "It's just a new way of being amazing." The tour ended in the center's heart, a grand atrium designed like Emma's treehouse concept. Ramps spiraled upward around a central space filled with plants and natural light. At various levels, cozy nooks invited children to read, create, or simply dream. "There's one more surprise," Marcus said, exchanging a glance with Grace. They led Emma to a special door marked Director of Inclusive Design. Inside was a fully equipped office, sized perfectly for a wheelchair, with drawing tables, computers, and walls ready to be filled with new ideas. On the desk sat a nameplate, Emma Bennett, Junior Director of Inclusive Design. "This is your space," Marcus explained, watching Emma's eyes widen. "Whenever you want to come here and work on new designs, help other kids, or just create, this office is yours." Grace knelt beside Emma's wheelchair. "The center will have professionals to help with therapy and education, but you'll be here to make sure we never forget what it's like to see the world through different eyes." Emma looked around the office, taking in every detail. Then she pulled out her ever-present sketchbook and wheeled herself to the drawing table. "I should start working on ideas for the next center," she said seriously. "Other cities are waiting." Marcus and Grace watched as their daughter began to draw, her confidence and creativity flowing freely in this space designed for her unique gifts. The morning sun streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow over the scene. Later, as they prepared to leave, Emma made one last stop in the music room. Sitting at the piano with Grace, she played a new melody, one she had composed herself. The notes spoke of hope, of family, of dreams taking flight. "This place isn't just a building anymore," Emma said as they headed home. "It's like a big hug made of walls and windows and music. It tells everyone they belong." Marcus and Grace shared a knowing look. Their daughter had given them more than just architectural innovations. She had shown them how to build spaces where love could grow, where differences were celebrated, and where every heart could find its home. The grand opening of the new Children's Hope Center approached, and with it came an unexpected proposal. Marcus found himself in his home office late one evening, carefully reviewing a special set of blueprints, not for a building, but for their future. Grace appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Emma's finally asleep," she said, setting 1 cup beside him. She was too excited about tomorrow's rehearsal to settle down. The center's opening ceremony would feature a musical performance by Emma and other children, showcasing the new adaptive instruments. Marcus quickly rolled up the blueprints he'd been studying, but not before Grace caught a glimpse of what looked like wedding venue designs. She pretended not to notice, hiding her smile behind her teacup. "Have you seen Emma's latest project?" Grace asked, changing the subject. "She's designing what she calls forever homes, houses that can adapt as families grow and change. She says they're for families like ours, who come together in unexpected ways." Marcus relaxed, grateful for Grace's tactful shift in conversation. "She showed me some sketches. The way she thinks about space and connection, it's remarkable. She sees possibilities where others see limitations." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft meow. Butterscotch padded into the office, followed by Emma in her wheelchair. "I had an idea," she announced, clearly having not been asleep at all, "for the opening ceremony tomorrow." Grace and Marcus exchanged amused glances. "Sweetheart, shouldn't you be in bed?" Grace asked gently. "But this is important," Emma insisted, pulling out her sketchbook. "I want to show everyone how families can be built different ways, just like buildings." She opened to a new drawing, a series of interconnected structures, each unique but harmoniously linked. Marcus moved closer to examine the drawing, recognizing elements of their own story in the design. "Tell us more about it," he encouraged, noting how Emma had incorporated symbols of their family throughout the illustration. "See, this is the main building. It's like a heart," Emma explained, pointing to the central structure. "And these paths connecting everything? They're like love. They make sure nobody gets left out or stuck alone." Grace felt tears welling up as she recognized what Emma was really expressing through her architecture. The drawing wasn't just about buildings, it was about their family's journey, about finding connection in unexpected places. "And look," Emma continued, flipping to another page, "I designed a special garden where people can have celebrations, with ramps and music and space for everyone to dance, even in wheelchairs." She looked up at Marcus with knowing eyes. "It would be perfect for a wedding." Marcus nearly choked on his tea, while Grace tried to suppress a laugh. Their daughter's perceptiveness never ceased to amaze them. "You know," Emma said matter-of-factly, "if you're worried about asking, you shouldn't be. Mom already knows she wants to say yes." The room fell silent for a moment, before all three burst into laughter. Even Butterscotch seemed to join in, purring loudly from his perch on Emma's lap. "Well," Marcus said finally, pulling out the blueprints he'd hidden earlier, "I suppose I should show you what I've been working on." He unrolled the papers, revealing detailed plans for a garden ceremony space at the new center, one that incorporated all the elements Emma had just described. Grace moved to his side, taking in the beautiful design. "You were planning this all along?" Marcus nodded, taking her hand. "I wanted it to be perfect, accessible, inclusive, meaningful, a celebration of how our family came together." He turned to Emma. "I was going to ask for your help with the final details, but it seems you're way ahead of me." Emma beamed, pulling out more drawings from her sketchbook. "I have lots of ideas. The chairs can be arranged in a spiral so everyone has a good view. And we need fairy lights everywhere, and maybe Butterscotch can be the ring bearer." As Emma enthusiastically shared her vision for their celebration, Grace and Marcus listened with hearts full of love and gratitude. Their daughter hadn't just helped them find each other, she'd shown them how to build a life where every difference was a gift, every challenge an opportunity for innovation. Later that night, after Emma had finally returned to bed, this time for real, Marcus and Grace stood on their balcony looking out over the city they were helping to transform, one building at a time. "So," Marcus said softly, "Emma seems to think you'd say yes." Grace turned to face him, her eyes shining with happiness. "Emma's designs are always right," she replied with a smile. "They're built on love and understanding, just like us." The morning of the Children's Hope Center's opening ceremony arrived with perfect spring weather. The new building gleamed in the sunshine, its innovative design drawing admiring glances from early arrivals. Inside, Emma supervised last-minute preparations from her wheelchair, Butterscotch faithfully following her on her rounds. "The flowers need to be lower here," she directed the decorating team, pointing to an arrangement. "Everyone should be able to smell them, not just see them." The workers smiled and adjusted the displays according to her specifications, having learned to trust the young designer's instincts. In the music room, Grace was helping other children prepare for their performance. The adaptive instruments had given many of them their first opportunity to make music, and their excitement was contagious. Emma wheeled in to join the rehearsal, taking her place at the specially designed piano. Marcus watched from the doorway as mother and daughter led the children through their practice, their shared love of music creating a beautiful harmony. The scene before him confirmed what he'd always known. Their family had been destined to find each other, to create something extraordinary together. As guests began to arrive, Emma took her position as unofficial greeter, proudly explaining the building's features to visitors. Architects, educators, and community leaders listened intently as she pointed out how each design element served a purpose, making the space welcoming to everyone. "See these textured paths?" she explained to a group of impressed architects. "They help people who can't see well know where they're going, and they're pretty too, like rivers running through the building." The ceremony began with Emma and her ensemble's performance. The music they created filled the space with joy, demonstrating how inclusive design could break down barriers and bring people together. Grace accompanied them on piano, her restored memories of music now creating new ones with her daughter. Marcus's speech focused on the future, not just of the center but of architecture itself. "This building represents more than innovative design," he told the assembled crowd. "It represents a new way of thinking about space, about community, about belonging. And we owe this vision to a remarkable little girl who taught us to see the world through different eyes." Emma's speech, which she had insisted on delivering herself, moved many to tears. "Everyone deserves wings," she said, her clear voice carrying through the atrium. "Sometimes they're real wings, like in my drawings. Sometimes they're ramps and elevators and special pianos. But mostly, they're the wings we give each other when we make room in our hearts for people who are different from us." The ceremony concluded with a surprise announcement from Marcus. The Butterscotch Initiative would be expanding nationwide, with Emma's designs serving as templates for inclusive architecture across the country. Furthermore, a scholarship program would be established to support students interested in accessible design. As cameras flashed and applause filled the air, Emma found herself surrounded by well-wishers, but her attention was focused on her parents, who stood together near her beloved piano, their hands clasped and faces glowing with pride and love. Later, during the reception, Emma unveiled one final drawing, her design for the garden where her parents would soon be married. The sketch showed a space where celebration and accessibility merged seamlessly, where joy and inclusion danced together under twinkling lights. "You've thought of everything," Grace said softly, studying the detailed plans. Emma smiled, adding, "One last touch to the drawing, a small orange cat with wings, watching over the celebration from a perch among the stars." "That's what families do," she replied. "They think of everyone. They make room for everyone. And they love everyone, just the way they are." Marcus knelt beside Emma's wheelchair, taking in the beauty of her design. "You know what else families do?" he asked, sharing a meaningful look with Grace. "They build something stronger together than they ever could alone." The sun began to set outside the center's walls, casting warm light through the carefully placed windows. Inside, the space hummed with possibility, ready to welcome countless children and families on their own journeys of discovery and belonging. The garden at the Children's Hope Center had transformed into Emma's vision of the perfect celebration space. Fairy lights twinkled overhead, creating a magical canopy that seemed to float above the accessible pathways. Flowers bloomed at various heights, ensuring every guest could enjoy their fragrance and beauty, regardless of their position. Emma supervised the final preparations from her wheelchair, making sure every detail matched her carefully crafted designs. She wore a flowing dress in soft blue, with delicate butterflies embroidered along the hem, a surprise gift from Grace that morning. "The chairs need to be arranged more like a spiral," she directed the setup crew, referring to her sketch. "Remember, everyone needs to see not just forward, but feel connected to each other." The workers smiled and began adjusting the seating according to her specifications, creating an intimate arrangement that wrapped around the central ceremony space like a warm embrace. In a quiet room inside the center, Grace stood before a mirror, her hands smoothing non-existent wrinkles from her elegant dress. Though she couldn't remember her first wedding, she knew in her heart that this one was more meaningful, a celebration, not just of love but of healing, of finding home in unexpected places. "Mom," Emma's voice called from the doorway, "I have something for you." She wheeled into the room carrying a small wooden box decorated with painted butterflies. "I found it in my old drawings from before. I think you should have it now." Grace knelt beside Emma's wheelchair as she opened the box. Inside lay a simple silver locket, tarnished with age but still beautiful. "Your father gave this to you," Grace whispered, memories flickering at the edges of her consciousness. "You used to wear it to all your piano recitals." Emma nodded, carefully lifting the locket. "I drew it lots of times, but I never opened it after everything changed. But look." She clicked it open, revealing two tiny photographs, one of a younger Grace at a piano, the other of Emma as a toddler, sitting on her mother's lap at those same keys. "Oh, sweetheart," Grace breathed, tears welling in her eyes. "This is precious." "I want you to wear it today," Emma said firmly, "because it's like us, something beautiful from before that found its way home." She helped Grace fasten the locket around her neck, its silver surface catching the light like a star. Meanwhile, Marcus stood in his office at the center, making last-minute adjustments to his vows. The words seemed inadequate to express the journey that had brought them here. How a rainy day visit had led to not just finding his daughter, but also the love of his life. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Diana, the center's original director, and now head of their nationwide program, entered with a smile. "Everything's ready," she said, "and you should see what Emma's done with the garden. That child never ceases to amaze me." Marcus smiled, tucking the vows into his pocket. "She amazes all of us. Sometimes I wonder who really adopted whom. Did we choose her, or did she choose us?" "Both, I think," Diana replied wisely. "The best families are built that way, with everyone choosing each other every day." The ceremony began as the sun started its gentle descent, casting a warm glow over the gathered guests. The pathways Emma had designed glowed softly, creating an ethereal atmosphere that made everyone feel as though they were floating in a dream. Butterscotch, wearing a tiny bow tie, performed his ring-bearer duties with surprising dignity, carrying a small basket with ribbons that Emma could easily reach from her wheelchair. The orange tabby had practiced this role for weeks under Emma's patient direction, and he executed it perfectly, drawing smiles and soft laughter from the guests. The music began. A piece Emma had composed herself, played on the center's adaptive piano by one of Grace's students. The melody carried notes of their family's story, joy and loss, discovery and healing, all woven together into something new and beautiful. As Grace made her way down the spiral aisle, guests noticed she wore no shoes, a detail Emma had insisted on, saying, "Sometimes you need to feel the path beneath you to know your home." The textured pathway Emma had designed provided sure footing while connecting Grace physically to this place that had brought her family together. Marcus waited at the center of the spiral, his eyes never leaving Grace as she approached. Emma positioned herself between them, her smile radiant as she watched her parents join hands. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of gold and rose, its light filtering through the canopy of twinkling lights above them. The celebrant, one of the center's longtime supporters, began the ceremony with words Emma had helped choose. "Love, like architecture, requires both strength and flexibility. It needs solid foundations, but also room to grow. Today, we celebrate a love that has built something extraordinary, a family designed by hope, constructed with courage and made perfect in its unique way." The exchange of vows filled the garden with emotion. Marcus spoke of transformation, how Emma's drawings had changed not just his buildings, but his heart. Grace spoke of rediscovery, how love had helped her rebuild not just memories, but a future more beautiful than she could have imagined. Emma, watching her parents pledge their lives to each other, added her own surprise to the ceremony. With help from her music teacher, she had prepared a special performance. The adaptive piano was wheeled into position, and Emma began to play, not just the lullaby that had first awakened Grace's memories, but a new composition that incorporated themes from both the old song and the center's opening ceremony piece. The music spoke of their journey, of loneliness transformed into belonging, of differences becoming strengths, of three separate paths weaving into one unbreakable bond. As Emma played, Grace and Marcus exchanged rings, each designed with subtle butterfly motifs that echoed their daughter's artistic vision. "These rings," the celebrant announced, "like this family, prove that the most beautiful things often come from unexpected beginnings. They remind us that love, like art, knows no limitations. It simply finds new ways to express itself." After the ceremony, the garden transformed for the celebration. The spiral seating rearranged easily into intimate gathering spaces, just as Emma had designed. Children from the center performed using the adaptive instruments, filling the evening, With joyful music that proved talent knows no boundaries, Diana approached the newly official family, her eyes bright with happy tears. "When you first walked into the old center," she said to Marcus, "I never imagined this is where that rainy day would lead." But Emma knew. She was drawing this future long before any of us could see it. Emma beamed at the praise, but quickly turned her attention to ensuring everyone was enjoying the accessibility features she'd incorporated into the reception space. She moved among the guests, pointing out how the varying table heights accommodated all users, how the dance floor's subtle texture changes helped guide those with visual impairments. Grace and Marcus shared their first dance on that thoughtfully designed floor, moving to the music of Emma's composition. As they danced, guests noticed something remarkable. The way the evening light played through the garden's canopy created patterns that looked like gentle wings spreading over the celebration. "Just like my drawings," Emma whispered to Butterscotch, who sat regally in her lap still wearing his bow tie. "Everyone has wings tonight." Later, as stars began to peek through the garden's canopy, Emma unveiled her wedding gift to her parents. A new series of drawings for family homes, each designed to grow and adapt with its inhabitants. "Because love keeps building," she explained, showing the detailed plans. "It never stops finding new ways to make room for more joy." The evening wound down with a final surprise orchestrated by Emma. She had arranged for paper lanterns to be distributed to all the guests, each one designed to be released regardless of physical ability. As the lanterns floated upward, their soft light joining the stars above, Emma's voice carried across the garden. "See, when we build things right, everyone can reach the sky." Grace and Marcus stood with their daughter, watching the lanterns rise. Their family was proof that love, like good architecture, could create spaces where everyone belonged. The Children's Hope Center stood behind them, its windows glowing warmly, ready to welcome more families on their own journeys of discovery. Butterscotch purred contentedly, his eyes following the ascending lanterns. Above them, the paper lights danced like so many glowing butterflies, carrying hopes and dreams into the endless possibility of the night sky. The garden Emma had designed held them all in its embrace, a perfect space for a family that had found its own unique way to soar. The sun was setting on another busy day at the Children's Hope Center when Emma made her way to the rooftop garden, her favorite place to think and draw. The space, like everything else in the building, had been designed to be accessible to everyone, with smooth paths winding between raised flower beds and comfortable seating areas that accommodated all needs. As she settled into her favorite spot, Emma pulled out her newest sketchbook. The pages were filled with increasingly sophisticated designs, each one building on her original vision of a world where differences were celebrated rather than overcome. Grace found her there, watching the city lights begin to twinkle in the gathering dusk. "Planning your next big project?" she asked, sitting beside Emma's wheelchair. "Actually," Emma smiled, turning to a fresh page, "I'm drawing our story. See?" She showed Grace the sketch taking shape, a series of connected buildings that represented their journey together. "This is the old center where Dad first found me, and here's our home where we became a family. And there's the new center where we help other families find their way." Marcus joined them, having finished his last meeting of the day. "And look, how many new chapters we're adding," he said, pointing to the construction visible in the distance. Another Hope Center rising to serve a different community. Emma nodded, adding more details to her drawing. "But the best part isn't the buildings," she said thoughtfully. "It's what happens inside them. Like how you found each other because you both wanted to help me, or how other families come here and discover they're not alone." Grace touched the locket she still wore, the one that had helped bridge their past and present. "You know what I think," she said softly. "I think you were drawing our future long before any of us could see it. All those pictures of flying cats and buildings where everyone belonged, you were showing us what was possible." "Speaking of flying cats," Marcus smiled, nodding toward the garden entrance where Butterscotch was making his royal progress. Toward them, still as dignified as ever despite his grey whiskers, the cat had become something of a mascot for their movement, his image appearing on the Hope Center's logo worldwide. As butterscotch settled into Emma's lap, she added him to her drawing, complete with his signature wings. "You know what I realized?" she said, continuing to sketch. "Everyone has wings. Sometimes they're just hard to see. That's why we build places like this, to help people discover how to use them." The family sat together in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge above them. The garden was filled with the gentle sounds of wind chimes, another of Emma's design elements, creating music that could be both heard and felt. "I used to think I was different in a bad way," Emma said finally, looking out over the city. "But now I know that being different just means you see things others might miss. And when you share what you see, you help make the world better for everyone." Grace hugged her daughter close. "You certainly made our world better, sweetheart. You helped us all learn to fly in our own way." Marcus stood, offering his hand to Grace and positioning himself behind Emma's wheelchair. "Shall we head home? I believe someone promised to help me review plans for the next Hope Center." Emma's face lit up. "The one with the butterfly garden and the musical playground. I have so many ideas for that." As they made their way back inside, Emma paused for one last look at the city spread out before them. Somewhere out there, she knew other families were discovering their own wings, their own ways of building love out of unexpected pieces. "You know what?" she said as they entered the elevator together. "Every good story has wings too. It just needs the right people to help it fly." And so the story of a little girl who dreamed of flying cats, a businessman who learned to see with his heart, and a mother who found her way home through music continued to soar. Through the Hope Centers they built,